It's gone. It's streaming. So you can,
Okay.
yeah, it is streaming. Awesome. That was so quick. You can get started and tell people we are recording and, they're giving permission by being on the stream. Otherwise, I think we are good to go.
Okay. And I didn't put the code in though. So.
Okay, it is saying it is streaming. For everybody else who's watching, we're just going to double check that the streaming is happening, guys. So give me a minute. Magical touch. 1 second, Pariya. Okay. Pariya, while I check, if you want to give our speaker access as for co-host or anything else, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we are live. It is streaming. So you got a magical chart. It's showing both of you. Good.
Okay, I just made you co-host. Okay, then let's start. If everybody is ready. Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for Weeklywed today. I'm your host, Pariya Sarin, and I'm part of the Weeklywed team. And as Sudha mentioned, this is being live streamed online. So please raise your hand or put your questions in the chat if you don't want to appear in the live stream. And today's guest speaker is Abinaya Mahendiran, joining us from India. And Abinaya is a seasoned engineer with the right blend of data science and software engineering skills, focused on building enterprise-ready ML products and solutions. She has almost a decade of experience working both as an individual contributor, productionizing solutions for various clients, both on-premise and on cloud, as a manager building cross-functional teams. She is an active contributor to open source projects. She gives back to the community by talking at various events, writing technical blogs, organizing technical tracks or events for GHCI, AI Tamil Nadu, data conversations, and the like, and by mentoring students and professionals. Currently, she is the CTO of Nunari Labs and a program manager at IITM for the Hidden Voices project. So thank you, Abinaya, for joining us today. And yes, and
Thanks, Pariya and Yash for the invite, basically. I'll just share my screen and check if it's working. Just give me a second. Okay, I guess the screen is visible, right?
Yes, yeah.
Sure, I'll get into the slideshow mode. Okay, so thank you for the introduction. Today, I just wanted to talk about it will be a gentle introduction to generative AI. Specifically, I'll be talking about NLP, how generative AI is playing a role in NLP, and I also want to touch upon how we are, planning to create LLMs for Tamil, which is my mother tongue. So, since I had a good introduction, I don't think I'll go through this slide. So for today's...
Sorry, Abinaya. This is a very global forum. So I heard a lot of acronyms of groups you're part of and what you're heading. Sure. So it would be very helpful if you give a good introduction so we know where you're coming from. And the reason I'm saying is we have a mix of people who are my students from various different platforms here. So some people are very, very technical and data scientists. Some people are brilliant business people and product managers. And so they come from different countries, different industries, different levels of tech. So it would help us if you tell us your background. I know you're trying to be a little more humble, but that would definitely help us. Thank you.
Not an issue. So currently, I'm the CTO of Nunari Labs. Nunari Labs is a small startup based out of Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, India, and we work on a lot of applied research as well as research problems, and we are also into edutech. So we have been, our motivation is to educate people and democratize AI. So that's the objective of the labs. And I also hold a part-time program manager role at IIT Madras, where I oversee an open source project called Hidden Voices. Other than that, I also mentor at different forums. So I'm part of some of the groups like Team Epic, Springboard, etc. And I also do mentoring on TopMate. Other than that, I help run.
Sorry to interrupt. So all of those don't mean anything to me. They except IIT Madras. So when you say you're part of IIT Madras, are you part of AI for Bharat team, or you're doing something else? And then please tell us about this amazing other groups and organizations, because we would love to know whether we can participate or go follow up their work. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe I'll give a little more detail. So in IITM, I'm part of Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and AI. So there we run a project called Hidden Voices, which is basically addressing the gender gap in Wikipedia data. So it's an open source project. It was managed by Rajyashree Bhaskaran, who is the CEO of Superbloom Studios. She's the one who initiated the project. She's an IIT alum. And there are a lot of people working on the project as a group. It is an open source project. You are free to join. There is a Discord. Maybe I'll share those details once we finish the talk. Maybe you can share it on YouTube also. You can put the Discord link. So again, that is an open source project.
I will be sharing the links as you're giving them here, or as a follow-up on LinkedIn, where this is being streamed. We won't be putting it on YouTube for those who are watching on YouTube, but we will also share this in the newsletter as a follow-up when this goes out.
Yeah. Got it. So that's about the Hidden Voices project. And with respect to mentoring, there are some, these are some teams, as in they are companies, they do have mentoring programs. So I'm part of those companies as a mentor. So I generally, mentor students who are working on certain projects, or I help design the project. So again, this is a professional role, meaning I get paid for doing that. And on TopMate, I do, it's a platform where you can provide your services either for free or for, a nominal charge. So I do mentoring. So specifically for students from Tier 2 cities, I do free mentoring. I don't take money for it. But then for professionals who are trying to get into data science, or people who want to switch to machine learning and all that, so I generally charge them a little. So that's about the mentoring thing. And I also help run several communities. Some of them I have listed here, so I'll talk about few. One is AI Tamil Nadu. So this is the parent organization, which is a non-profit. We are in the process of registering it as a non-profit, but we have active chapters like AI Coimbatore, AI Salem, so which are basically based out of certain cities in Tamil Nadu. Here we have been running events. So I help. I'm a co-lead, I would say. So these communities were already there from 2018. So I recently moved to Coimbatore like just 2 years back. So I've become an active core member of the team, and we help run a lot of AI ML events. We partner with WTM, like Google's WTM Women Tech Makers Ambassadors, or Google for Developers Group. There are a lot of forums like that, right? So we partner with them and we conduct events. And again, WTM is the Women Tech Makers program, which is focused on women who are into technology. Again, this is run by Google, so we can volunteer to be an ambassador for WTM. And again, there is an application process through which you get selected. So I am a WTM ambassador, and I help run events regularly for my community in Coimbatore. And Data Conversations is again an open source initiative. This is done by two senior IBM leaders, specifically focusing on productionizing LLMs for an industrial setting, because still we do face a lot of challenges in finding out best practices, or finding out how to resolve certain issues when it comes to making an LLM production ready in an enterprise setting. So this group again is an open source group. People can join in. We do conduct monthly talks by researchers, or even industrial people, so that people get to understand what's happening in the LLM space. So this is also an open thing. I'll share the link. And GHCI, regularly I volunteer for GHCI as a reviewer. I'm part of the core committee, AIML committee. I've been doing this from 2015. And I also volunteer for Women Who Code and Women in AI. Again, these are small groups focused on women who are into technology. So these are all the groups I'm part of. And some of the events will be spun across different groups, but some are like specific, and we regularly conduct events almost every quarter. So yeah, this is
That's
about
such an amazing list. And you, because you're so engrossed in it, you don't realize how many groups and how many how much knowledge sharing opportunities you've been giving. What is GHCI? I'm sorry, I don't.
Grace Swapper Celebration India.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, yeah.
the counterpart of the GHCI for India. Yeah, of GHC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, my specific areas of interest is like I come from an engineering background, so I have a master's in CS, and also I have done a lot of work in deep learning and everything. So I like both the intersection of engineering and data science. So I love building products, specifically in NLP and NLU. Right now, I'm into Gen AI systems also. So these are some of my interests, and I regularly contribute to some of the open source initiatives that I see is very close to low results NLP. I'll be talking about a few of them later. And yeah, I'm interested in applied research also. So that's my basic interest. And I've given my social handles. I'm not very active on Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account, no Instagram. I'm just active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And in Medium, I do write blogs, not so regularly, but I do write whenever I get time. And yeah, and I also have this mentoring platform where you can book calls if you find that useful. So yeah, that's about myself. Now I think I'll get into the session.
Yes, thank you so much. That's amazing.
So today, what I have planned is, it is going to be a very introductory session, because you might be hearing a lot about Gen AI, but maybe the basic building blocks, not many people know it, or they get past it because there are a lot of APIs available. So I just wanted to touch base on the basic aspects of Gen AI, what led to generative AI shift, and how models have been evolving in the NLP space. And we'll also see some challenges and open research directions in NLM. And I want to specifically talk about how, as a community, we are trying to build something for Tamil. And I'll also talk about Global South in AI's call for paper abstract submission that I did recently. So this is what I have planned for today. So before we get into the details, first thing we wanted to understand is, what is generative AI? So if you talk about artificial intelligence is the parent domain, where we try to build agents that can act like humans. So essentially, you are building physical agents, where it will actually help humans in certain tasks, or even it can do things on its own. Where machine learning is again a subdomain of artificial intelligence, where we are actually teaching a computer to learn patterns from the data. There are different paradigms of learning. One of it is supervised learning, where you provide some examples along with the labels, and the machine will try to understand the pattern. Once you give an unseen data, it uses its knowledge to predict or even classify the data point, depending on what type of problem we are dealing with. So again, example problems are classification and regression. In classification, say if you want to classify a picture as a cat or a dog, or in regression, where you want to predict whether it will rain tomorrow, what is the probability that it will rain tomorrow, kind of scenario. So these are some examples. And in unsupervised learning, we do have a lot of unlabeled data, meaning data is there, but we do not know which category or group it belongs to. In those scenarios, what will a machine do is, it will try to learn the pattern, and it will group the data based on the similarity. So again, this is one of the type of learning in machine learning. And the next one is semi-supervised learning. where we have very little label data, but we do have a large amount of unlabeled data. This is a very prevalent scenario in the industry because people generally don't tend to spend a lot of time labeling the data. So in such scenario, we train the model using both the data, and it will be able to predict unseen data. So that's what semi-supervised learning is. The last paradigm is reinforcement learning. Here you have an agent and you have an environment. Based on the stimulus from the environment, the agent will react. Basically, it will perform some actions, and the actions will either be rewarded or penalized. And based on the reward or punishment, the agent will keep learning. It will keep correcting itself. So again, this will be useful in scenarios. You would have seen like gaming scenarios where an agent tries to walk, you teach an agent to do somersault, etc. So these are some of the examples of machine learning. Deep learning is again a subdivision of machine learning, where we are basically trying to mimic how a human brain would understand things. So you design something called neural networks with a lot of nodes, and which is mimicking your neuron, and each node is connected to the other node using connections, which is exactly like how a brain is made of. So, and what does this neural network do? It tries to learn the complex pattern in data, and then again here it uses the same paradigms of learning like supervised, unsupervised, and semi-supervised. And within deep learning, we have generative AI. So generative AI is again a deep learning model, which tries to generate new content based on what it has learned in the past. So we give huge amount of data to the model. It tries to learn the pattern. It understands the nuances of whatever data you pass it. And then it generates new data based on that knowledge. So the outputs might be completely new. Like you might not even see such data in the training set, but it will be able to create completely new data points. So that is what generative AI is. So when we talk about generative AI, we are talking about generation, right? So traditionally, there are two types of models. So when you talk about ML, you can put a model into one of these two categories. One is discriminative models. The other one is generative models. In discriminative models, what a model does is it will try to distinguish between different types of classes. Let's say a binary classification problem where you have handwritten digits 0 and 1, and your model should ideally put the zeros in the 0 bucket and 1 in the 1 bucket. Here, what is it essentially trying to learn is, given a data, what is the probability that it belongs to class 0 or class Y? So which is a conditional probability. So probability of Y given X is what it is trying to learn. And it approximates the decision boundary such that the data is separated. So this is what discriminative models usually do. Example, classification problem. In generative models, the model will itself generate new data points, basically fake data points that are very close to the original data distribution. So here again, you have the same digit classification, digit problem where you have handwritten zeros and ones. And the model will learn the joint probability distribution. And what it will do is it will try to generate new zeros and new ones such that the zeros and ones will be very close to the actual classes. So this is what all your GPTs and everything is doing, because it is trying to give something that is as close to the real data as possible. So that is what generative models are. In general, like traditionally, how have we developed a lot of solutions in the industry is that you have a problem. For example, whatever is given here, let's take this. We have images and you want to put it in one of the 4 classes, or you have a text, you want to put it in one of the sentiment class, either it is positive or negative sentiment. So you have a defined problem and you have example data for that problem. Let's say in a supervised setting, you have labels for the data and you have exactly one problem to solve. Then we build individual model to solve each of the use cases. So it's like you have to build 10 different models if you have 10 different use cases to solve. And for all those 10 cases, you definitely need to have label data. Otherwise, it's very difficult to solve. Generally, unsupervised learning cannot be directly used for production. You will have to resort to supervised learning only for productionizing your models. So imagine this is one use case where it is trying to identify what is the posture of the person, and here it is trying to identify where the picture is taken, and here it is sentiment, and here it is whether it's a cat or dog, whatever. So all this is an individual problem. So you will essentially have 4 different models. This is what we have been doing for a very long time in the industry, even before all this popularity of transformers or LLMs came into picture. Then what happened? There came a paradigm called transfer learning. In transfer learning, what we are essentially doing is we train a model using generic data. Let's take an example. There is a lot of English data that is available on the internet. You have Wikipedia, you have Reddit, lot of online forums, you have websites that are publicly, that can be publicly scraped. All that information is taken and you are building a model. And that model will be using a language modeling objective, which is you take a sentence, you have say 10 words. So word is basically called token because we will be splitting the sentence into tokens. And let's say we mask 30% of the tokens, which is 3 words in 10 words we are masking, and we are training the model in such a way that it uses the remaining 7 words to understand the context and fill in those missing words. So this is an objective function with which the model is trained. In pre-training, you don't need to have labeled data because getting labeled data is a problem, as we know. So we use unlabeled data and train a language model using objective like mask language modeling, and use that pre-trained model as a base model. So now it understands English because it is trained on English language. Now I want to classify certain documents based on whether it talks about sports or it talks about politics or it talks about science. Then what I do is I collect task specific label data. So I have document and label which topic it talks about. That kind of pair I collect, and then we fine tune it. When fine tuning, we take a very task specific objective function like cross entropy, or depending on whether you're doing multi-class classification or multi-label classification, your objective function will change. And then you fine tune the model, and then it will be applied to that particular downstream task. So this completely changed the way we were working, with models, because you have a very strong base model, which is trained using pre-training, and with very limited data, you can do fine tuning. Otherwise, you should ideally, collect a lot of data in millions to even, build a proper model for your use case. But now that the pre-training itself is done on huge amount of data, you can even have in probably thousands of data points to do the fine tuning. So this completely shifted, the traditional way of doing ML. And it opened up a lot of doors. So that's this I think the starting point of building very robust models, I would say.
Abinaya, if it's okay to ask a question.
Yes,
so there was transfer learning already with machine learning, right? Before the transformer models came, the concept of transfer learning with one data set into another data set, right? It exists beyond language. Maybe you'll be talking about this at the appropriate time, but I wanted to place this question. I would like to understand how this applied to the whole transformer models and the world of LLM, different from what was done in machine learning and transfer learning, because transfer learning concept is not new.
Yeah, concept is definitely not new, but I mean, there is actually not so much difference between the two. Earlier, we were doing a lot of, say in machine learning, we were also doing, like, I think even ensemble learning, all these things are still the same. So transfer learning is still the same, even in the pre-transformer era and even after that. But after transformer and all that came into picture, what changed is that people didn't have to wait a long time to build very specific domain specific models, because collecting data itself is a huge thing, right? In machine learning, you don't need a lot of data. You can still get away with just 1,000 high quality data points are enough to build a very good model using XGBoost or any other, good model, appropriate to the use case. But in transfer learning, since it's deep learning based, you definitely need a lot of data to, learn the patterns. Since transfer learning came into picture, and we are doing pre-training using generic data, that number of data points required to build your task specific model, I think that came down, which is again time to production, time to building POCs, all that went up because all that came down because you were able to take a base model and then fine tune it. So I guess that is the major change between ML and DL, like after pre-transformer era, I would say.
Thank you.
And just to add on to that, the question was, which of these is better, the pre-training, fine-tuning, or prompt engineering in terms of building domain-specific applications?
So in industrial setting, unless and until you work on a very, very specific domain, say you work on finance data or you work on medical data, there it's better to build a pre-trained model, because a generic model wouldn't be able to identify financial information from documents, right? You definitely need to teach the model that, okay, these are all the finance documents, please learn the nuances of it. So in very specific niche domains, it's better to spend your money and then do a pre-trained model first. But in other cases, say if I'm doing just classification, in most of the applied research companies that I have seen in the past or worked with, mostly what you see is you do classification or you do some kind of clustering. So it's very basic problems. So for that, I guess using an existing pre-trained model and then fine tuning on that would help. Prompt engineering, again, when we come to LLM, if you want to cut down on the cost of either pre-training or fine-tuning, you can just pay for the API and do prompt engineering. So again, it's very specific to the problem that we are dealing with. But ideally, for domain-specific things, it's better to have a pre-trained model first and then do your fine-tuning. Whereas in general applied research problems, it's okay to pick a pre-trained model and then fine-tune it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So continuing on the fine-tuning aspects, so there are a variety of ways in which you can fine-tune a model. Like I said, adaptive fine-tuning is training a model on a target domain. So because just learning on general English is not going to help me when I want to build a model for, say, healthcare, because the terms, the nuances are completely different. So if a doctor writing a prescription or taking a patient note, it's all different because they use codes and other things. So it's always advisable to do adaptive fine-tuning where you, build a model targeting a specific domain. That's where you will collect the say healthcare documents, and then you, like, without any labeling, you take the healthcare documents and you do adaptive fine-tuning. In behavioral fine-tuning, you take a specific task. Now you have a healthcare model, but you want to do health classification on a healthcare document. Then you collect supervised data, as in label data, and then you try to specialize it for that particular task. So these are the two specific types of fine-tuning that you can actually do. And there is something called PEFT, which is parameter efficient fine-tuning. This tells you how efficiently you can fine-tune a model without losing its knowledge. And then by doing so, you are basically reducing the size of the model, because all these models that we are talking about is like huge. They have billion parameters, etc., etc. I mean, the recent models are like even huge. But when it comes to productionizing those models, it's very difficult because the cost of infrastructure, the time with which it is responding to the user, all those factors should be thought about. In order to optimize it a bit, when you are fine-tuning, what you can do is you can do you can freeze the architecture. Only fine-tune certain portions of the architecture, as in the last few layers of the architecture, or even you can do pruning, because sometimes the model will be super sparse. So I don't want to use the entire weights as is, so I can cut down on the weight. So these are some of the methods that you can do to make the model size smaller. So this is another thing that generally people need to think about when they are building production ready models. And another fine-tuning approach is text-to-text fine-tuning. Here, like I said, prompt engineering comes into picture, where you do not actually have to do fine-tuning. Instead, write better English prompts. So here, your natural language is the key. So you need to give examples to the model and ask the model to do certain things. And based on what examples you provide, it will be able to do it without any kind of fine-tuning. So again, this tells us how effectively we can use the pre-trained LLMs without even fine-tuning. And in fine-tuning, the general problems that we face is, suppose I fine-tune a model and the model keeps training, there is a greater chance that I may overfit on the data that I have used for fine-tuning, right? Because the amount of data that I'm going to use is less. But if I keep fine-tuning for longer steps, it is going to learn the new thing, but it may forget the old thing. So in order to avoid all those instabilities, I think these are general methods in deep learning, not very specific to LLMs. It's a general thing. So you can do early stopping, where if the loss is increasing, suddenly it's starting to increase, then you can cut down on you can stop the training process, or you can use small learning rates so that it doesn't overfit. And again, you can penalize the model. You can do proper initialization of weights and all that. So again, this is done in order to prevent overfitting. So these are some of the types of fine-tuning and how efficiently we can do fine-tuning. And with all this in picture, then came the foundation models. So we talked about pre-training, we talked about fine-tuning, but even there, we need to have a base model, and we had to fine-tune it for downstream tasks. The only advantage is when we were building individual models, maybe the accuracy was not so great because you had to find a lot of data and then build a model for that use case. But in the transfer learning era, you had a very good base model, and you had to fine-tune using your own data. There, at least the accuracy was little better than the previous case. Then people realized, okay, what if I can build a single model that can solve for multiple problems? Because now we have access to a lot of open data, like huge amount of data, which you can, which we can't even imagine. There is so much of publicly available data. So what people did is took that unlabeled data and they pre-trained the model, and that model will be able to do a lot of tasks even without fine-tuning. Or if you want, you can also do fine-tuning, but even without fine-tuning, using prompt engineering techniques, you will be able to just prompt the model and you can make the model do what you want. So then such kind of models became what are called as foundation models. So all the LLMs that we talk about, it all falls under foundation models. And like I said, they have like 540 billion parameters, like so many billion parameters, starting from at least a billion, because you need a certain range of parameters to call it a large language model. So it will be definitely in billions. And imagine productionizing such models, because loading and serving them in real time, all those are still challenges that we face in the industry.
And Abinaya, so what are some of the factors that make it difficult to find high quality data when doing fine tuning? Like, for example, like in terms of privacy or ethics, and other factors.
Yeah. So one thing is, at least what I have observed working in the industry for different kind of clients, is that most of the times we think about data collection one day after thinking about the use case. I feel it has to be the other way around. People should already start investing on, whether you're using an AI like machine learning or not. Ideally, you should start collecting data, specifically because after identifying a potential use case, collecting data becomes very challenging, because not many people want to spend money on collecting high quality data, though there are a lot of services like Amazon Turk. There are a lot of platforms that provide you the service. But again, by opting to do that, the time to completing the POC or time to completing the model, it increases, right? Like no one wants to do it in real time. So that's actually a big challenge. Like people have to think about data first and then the use case next, instead of the other way around. And another thing is, apart from not willing to spend too much money, again, time is also a problem. It's not a one day thing. Like you cannot make people provide you high quality data in one day. It's a long process, so it has to be a mindset first. So I think these are some of the challenges that, as in process wise, companies should think about before they want to work on any kind of AI use case. And yeah, sorry, and you were asked about ethics and like bias also. Even that, the data has to be very, very representative, right? But that's not the case right now. You see a lot of bias in all the models that we have, and it's because whatever is publicly available, those data is biased, like that is biased. So maybe we have to put effort in making sure that whatever data we are using for training the model should be very representative. Again, that's also a process. You need to have all those blocks in place before you even start thinking about building a use case.
Yeah, that's true.
So so now I just wanted to give an overview of the NLP timeline, because I am like into NLP, so I care more about what's happening in the NLP space. So it all started with, like, again, some few things are not new. Even deep learning, for that matter, the first perceptron and all came in the like even before 80s. So things are there for a long time. The only thing is now people have a lot of exposure to all these technologies. That's the only difference. So the first, I mean, let's start from maybe the 80s. So initially we had recurrent neural networks. Basically, they are like gated units which can memorize part of sentences. The only issue with this, it's a sequence to sequence model, so it can learn a sequence and generate a sequence. And the issue with RNNs were that it could handle only very minimal context. Why is context important? Because only with context I'll be able to understand the meaning of the sentence and whatever tasks I want to do. Without that, I may not be able to produce the right output, right? So context was actually an issue in RNN because it had a very little window. Then LSTMs came into picture. Again, it belongs to the family of RNNs only. It's called long short-term memory. Here, you will be able to see throughout the entire sentence. Say the like if the word which is in the middle, it will have access to all the words prior to it and all the words after it, so that whenever we are working on a use case, it will be able to see the complete context and then accordingly give the output. And you also have like bidirectional LSTMs which can see both ways. So here the context window is like little bit expanded. Then we had Word2Vec from Google. So Word2Vec is basically to generate embeddings, meaning you have words that are similar to each other mapped to the same space in the vector space. Like you imagine that all these words are data points in a vector space. Words that are similar in meaning will be close to each other. Words that are not so similar in meaning will be a little far from each other. So this particular method will help us in generating embeddings for whatever, like this will be like a feature that goes into any kind of architecture. So independently, we can even use the embeddings as features in other architectures. Then in 2017, we got transformers, I think, which is the kind of turning point, because after transformers, there is no stopping of NLP or deep learning in general. So in transformers, we had the encoder and decoder block, where the encoder module will convert the data into embeddings, and then the decoder will take in the embeddings and it will try to generate the next word prediction. So this is, I think, a milestone paper by Google, and it also uses different kind of mechanism to understand context. Even in Word2Vec, there was context window, which we can manually set. Similarly, in transformers also, we have a context window. So here it uses positional encoding to embed the data, and it uses attention and self-attention mechanism to understand the context of the given sentence. Then came the GPTs. So GPT uses the decoder block from transformers. So essentially, if you know what a transformer is, understanding GPT will become easier because it uses only the decoder block of transformer. Then we got like a lot of variations in GPT. Now we have 3.5, 4 and everything. Then we got instruct in GPT where it was fine-tuned on instructions, like you provide an instruction to the model and it will give you an output. So that came into picture. Once the techniques and all those things were available as papers, people started building open source models. So I think last year and even now, within the last, I think 6 to 8 months, we have had a lot of open source models which are competing to the proprietary models. And again, like I said, people even started building their own GPTs for, say, finance. Like Bloomberg did a finance GPT model. So you can see a lot of changes after, I think, 2022 from I think April, May onwards. From that time onwards, we had a lot of models. And even now, I guess here it's still 2020 December, 22 December. But in the last 8 months also, you have so many things that happened. Like you have so many models that came into existence. So yeah. And 2022 December is again the milestone one, which is the ChatGPT, I think, which we are all using as part of our day-to-day work, at least to some extent, either to write or you use it as a co-pilot. So I guess these are some of the major milestones, I would say, in the NLP space.
And I think you mentioned that, open source models are on the rise. What are your thoughts on, do you think that there's still and is enough accessibility in open source models for collaboration, or do you think there are still restrictions? And also in terms of, and just generally, do you prefer monopolized LLMs or do you prefer open source?
Personally, I would say that, there should be a lot of open source models that should come up, because having a single organization or just a few organizations building models and releasing it to the public, they though people are ready to pay the charge, it doesn't matter now. But then again, you have to follow the rules and regulations. You have to stick to what they say. So it's like your creativity is kind of bounded by what they say. But when you have open source models, you're free to use. Again, still using it responsibly, I would say it's in the hands of the user. Even if you put restrictive licenses or whatever, I have seen things go wrong. People have tried things and you still have a lot of stuff out in the market where you have deep fakes, etc. Again, it's up to the user how they want to use it, but ideally we have to decide to use it responsibly. But having more open source models, it opens up the game for everyone, right? Like there might be a very, very small company trying to build something which can impact a large amount of people or a community. It's always good to have an open source model, because not everyone can afford a proprietary model scheme, right? So I would say a lot of people should start building open source models for their own communities or for their own use cases, so that it becomes democratized. So yeah, I would prefer an open source model over a proprietary one. So now I just wanted to touch upon the concepts, because these are some of the concepts you should definitely understand if you are getting into Gen AI. NLP, again, I'm not teaching the basics of NLP, because I think that's there out there. And at least in the Gen AI space, many people, they come directly to the Gen AI space. They don't even have the NLP background or anything, but they'd come to the Gen AI space directly. So I just wanted to touch upon the basic concepts. So the first thing you need to understand is what is a language model. So we talk about a lot of LLMs, right? So large language model. So what is a language model? A language model is nothing but it takes in a set of features. Here features will be your words, and it tries to predict the next word, next possible word that could occur for this sentence. So basically input a sentence, it will be split into words, and the output will be what is the most probable word that will follow this series of words. That's what a language model does. Again, what does it do internally? These words, whatever you provide as input, you already have a vocabulary which is collected from your corpus, and you have embeddings for each of those words. And it will try to look up the embeddings and calculate the probability of occurrence for each of the word in the vocabulary, and it will map, after it predicts, it will try to map it back to the vocabulary. So it's like, it will not only give the next possible word, it will also give the probability of all the words in the vocabulary. So you ideally get a distribution, and whichever word has the maximum probability, that will be your next possible word. So this makes sense, right? So thou shall not is something that we have seen in text. So again, this is a very basic example, but ideally this is what a language model does. And the next concept that you definitely need to know is encoder decoder of transformer. So like I said, the transformer model is that one model that was the breaking point for the NLP domain. It has several encoder blocks that are stacked on top of one another, and a decoder block again stacked on top of one another. So this encoder block, what does it do? It will take in a sentence and it will convert it to a vector. How does it do? It takes the sentences, it tries to map it to the index. So in general, for any NLP problem, whenever you have a data, the text corpus, you first create a vocabulary. So vocabulary is basically the unique words in the corpus, and you have that vocabulary fixed. Like that's what people generally do, right? In terms of dictionary, in the language also. Even though we speak a lot of things in English, dictionary contains all the unique words. Similarly, you create the vocabulary. Then you map the index. You pick the index of these particular words. Here it's a French sentence. It is converted to a English sentence. So let's say there is like a dictionary which has all these words, and I will replace these words with the index number from the dictionary. Then I also use some separators for sentences, because I may have longer sentences right here, because transformer can handle longer context than the previous models. And it will try to use something called positional encoding based on the occurrence of a word in the sentence. Again, it will convert that to a number, and that is being passed to the blocks. And it uses mechanism called attention and self-attention, where for every word in a sequence, it tries to focus on the nearby words, and it tries to understand the context of that particular word. So it does that in multiple layers, and at the end of it, it gives what it gives is called an embedding. So that embedding can even be used as a feature in different models, or it can be passed to a decoder model, where it will do what we saw earlier, right? The language model, it takes in a series of words and it tries to give the next best word, which has the highest probability. So it does the same, but here instead of French, it is the problem statement here is it has to convert French to English. So it will try to predict the corresponding words for each of the French words. So this is what the encoder and decoder stack will do. Again, in detail, if we have to do, again, that will become a big session. I have actually provided all the resources that I've used, which are really, really great, which has in-depth explanation of all these things. But for now, I'm just giving you the overview. For GPT and BERT, it will use only the decoder side of things. If it is GPT, like I said, it uses only the decoder because it is just generating the next word, like it is trying to predict the next best word. Whereas if the architecture uses only encoder blocks, it is called BERT, bidirectional encoder transformer. So this is again, we have a lot of variations in BERT with different number of encoder blocks and different kind of techniques used to create the embeddings. This again can independently be used as features for some other model. So I can get BERT embedding from this model and build a XGBoost also. So this will give you very good features, specifically when it comes to text. So this is another concept that you should know. And this is one of the important concepts which was used to train ChatGPT, because I know all of us would have heard about this is from the OpenAI paper. So here, what we are basically doing is we have an initial language model, which is pre-trained on large amount of data, and you have a prompt data set. Prompt data set is basically the instruction that you give to the model. Say I go to ChatGPT and I say, hey, can you write me an essay on, today is Raksha Bandhan Day. So can you tell me the importance of Raksha Bandhan Day? That is a prompt. You collect a lot of prompts like that, and you sample some prompts from the prompt data set, and you give it to the model. And what will the model do? The model will give you output. So if I ask about Raksha Bandhan Day, it may give me a paragraph about what Raksha Bandhan Day is, why is it celebrated, etc. We collect these pairs, the prompts and the output, and we give it to human labelers. So there are people who take this data and they rank it based on preference. So the best output for a particular prompt, starting from best output of a particular prompt to the worst. So you basically rank it in pairs, and that data is passed to a reward model. So this reward model is again a reinforcement learning algorithm. So like we saw earlier, right, in the beginning, what is reinforcement learning? It will try to take this sample reward pairs, and it will try to give you a quality score for the language model. Again, this particular model can also be fine-tuned, because if suppose the score is becoming less and less, even the policy has to change, right? Also, the same feedback will be given to the initial language model, and it will be again fine-tuned. So it's a process, it's a cycle. So the same is explained in detail here. But the idea is you have human in the loop. So you have people who are sitting and kind of, ranking the prompt and output pairs, and then that is being used to build a better reward model. And based on the feedback, this initial model is also fine-tuned. So this is what happens in reinforcement learning from human feedback. That's the abbreviation, RLHF. So this is the main technique that is used in training ChatGPT. People get amazed, right? Like they say that, okay, the whatever output the model gives is so good. It is super right. Sometimes, maybe very few times it'll give you wrong information, but most of the times for very basic questions, or generally how a human thinks and asks question, I think it gives us absolutely right answer. That's because, again, the quality data is being vetted here, right? So that is also one more reason why the model is able to perform really well. And the next important concept that you need to know is prompt. Till now, we were talking about, okay, fine-tuning, pre-training and all that. What if I don't want to do that? Because that involves cost, that involves time, etc. Using simple English, if I can just ask the model what I want, will the model be able to answer me? That particular short piece of text is basically your prompt. You need to write prompt in proper languages, as in you have to be explicit about what you want the model to do. You should also give examples like, okay, I want this kind of output. Can you please answer my question based on this input? So you can design your prompts however you want. In general, prompt contains these four parts. So one is instruction, where you specify what the model you want the model to do. Second is the context. So I can give instruction, but I also need to give additional information, right, on which the model has to perform the task. So that is your context. And you give input data. Again, you can tell the model, hey, this is the context. I want you to do this, and these are the questions I'm interested in. Can you find a response for this? So that is your input data. And I want the format to be say JSON, or simply just give me the output as a text. So you can even provide an output indicator. So these are the different parts of a prompt. Now we'll see how to design prompts. So the way you design prompts is basically called prompt engineering. And these days you even see a lot of JDs with prompt engineering title. I think, I don't know if it's real or not, but I think, yeah, you see a lot of JDs with this title. So how
Hi,
can
Abinaya, sorry to interrupt. We had a webinar on prompt engineering a couple weeks back here.
Okay.
So at least this audience is familiar with prompt engineering, and for those of the people who are new here can actually go back, look at the the recording. So Pariya is sharing that on the chat here, and we'll also put it on onto the link in LinkedIn. So I didn't mean to interrupt. You can continue on, but I want to make sure that we give you enough time to learn about your work with Tamil and low resource languages. This is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. So here I've just listed down the very basic things, as in because prompt engineering itself is a huge area. So I'll just touch upon just the very basic one. So in zero-shot prompting, what you do is you just ask the model to do what you want, and you give the actual input, and you ask for the output, and it will give you the output. Whereas in few-shot prompting, you give an example. Like here, they described a particular word and they used it in a sentence, and they introduced a new word and gave its meaning, and they're asking the model to use it in a sentence. So here, using this previous example, it will work on this new example. So that is what few-shot prompting is. And in chain of thought prompting, just by giving a question and answer and asking another question, you will definitely get an answer. But what if you want to understand the reasoning behind that answer? So while giving input only, you give the reasoning also as a few short example. And then you ask the model a similar question. It will again, apart from giving the actual answer, it will also tell you what is the step-by-step approach. So again, it can be few short, or you can even just give standard prompting. So this is what prompt engineering. These are like very basic techniques. There are more. And the next one is RAG. So it is called Retrieval Augmented Generation. So here in LLMs, generally the problem is problems that we all see is that it hallucinates a lot, meaning it tends to give things that are not true with so much confidence. So what if we have a way to enhance the context and then pass it to the model? So that the model doesn't give us nonsense answer. Here again, this helps in cutting down the fine tuning, because you don't have to fine tune the model. You can pick any large language model, and when you are giving your prompt and query, instead of directly sending it to the model and getting back the answer, what you do is you have a knowledge source which is available to you, indexed. Then what you do is you take the query, you search the index, get the relevant information, append it to the prompt, an enhanced context is provided. Then you pass it to the language model, and now the language model will use this enhanced context to answer your query. So again, this is a little extension. So this system is a vector search system, vector database, which most of you would have seen, like Elasticsearch or any other vector database. So traditionally it is Elasticsearch, but now you have a lot of players in the market. You have a lot of vector DB. So use any such vector DB to get your domain specific information and use it as a context. So this also helps in reducing hallucinations, because you give relevant domain specific resources. So this is another important concept. So till now, what I've covered is again a very surface level information on the concepts or even Gen AI models. I mean, it's again a very vast topic. So now I just wanted to highlight some of the limitations. So one is hallucination. Like I said, sometimes the model will be able to convince you that whatever information it gives is correct, because it looks so good that you will believe that what it is telling is true. So fact checking definitely has to happen from our end. The reason why it is happening is because the model is not trained on enough data. When I say enough data, it has to be representative, right? It's very difficult to get that universe of data that is so representative of everything. So it's still a challenge. But if it doesn't have enough data about a particular domain or particular specific task, then it will definitely give you misleading information. Or sometimes the data might be noisy, or you cannot even distinguish sometimes whether it is a genuine data or not. So the more bad data you feed in your model, you're going to get bad data. So I think this is a generic problem, not just in LLMs, even machine learning or basic deep learning also. I guess this is the same problem we face everywhere. And not giving enough context to the model. So we saw the previous example, right, using RAG. So there we are giving additional context so that the model does not go beyond that context to answer your question. But if we do not do that, the model does not have complete information about what you want, and it may give something that is not at all existent because it can generate data, right? Again, it's just next word prediction, right? It will just assign probabilities. So it may give some completely random, useless output. And the model is not given enough constraints also, because if you don't have those guardrails, anyone can prompt anything. So recently you might have seen that if you ask models to okay, how do I build a bomb, anything which is illegal to know, if we do not have now, they do have certain kind of constraints. So it may not even answer you like, okay, I'm not supposed to answer this, or I do not have access to that information, so it will try to tell you. So you need to have those kind of constraints, otherwise the model will behave in a very different way. The another major concern is the ethical concern, because like I said, the data itself is very biased, and what if people use it for unintended purposes? Again, this is a very common problem in not just LLMs, even prior to that. So we need to think about regulations, how we can, mandate certain things, how not to use the data for unintended purposes. So this is something that we need to think about as a process. And another important limitation is that productionizing LLMs is very, very difficult in industry setting. First, finding a real world use case where LLMs are useful. Again, just because LLMs are hyped, no one wants to use it in their, in solving their use case, right? Maybe simple statistical models would do, but still people give into hype and they tend to use LLMs. But again, the challenge is productionizing them, because it comes with a lot of cost, be it training cost, training the model, or even during inference also you need to keep serving the model real time and all that, right? So it involves a lot of cost, and infrastructure is, again, though affordable, you will still end up with a lot of bill, right? So that is one challenge. And again, time. If you want to do your own LLMs, like if you're working in a specific niche domain and you want to build your own LLMs, it will take a lot of time, because data collection plus training, everything takes a lot of time. So it's you need to be ready to take the time to do that. And again, pre-training, fine-tuning versus prompting, depending on the use cases that you want to solve, you have to pick the right method. Otherwise, you'll end up increasing your time or spending more money. So these are some of the challenges with respect to productionizing the LLM. And explainability is difficult, because in machine learning, at least you can tell why a particular model made a certain decision. Whereas in deep learning, it's very, very difficult, because it's like a black box. So and in LLMs, it's even more difficult, because you have many billions of parameter, and figuring out where exactly the model kind of faulted, or what made the model make such decision, it's very difficult. And I think OpenAI is still trying to come up with a tool to even explain why a model gave a particular output. So again, this itself is a separate domain. So this is also a difficult thing when it comes to productionizing models. And another major aspect is responsible AI. Security and privacy is very, very important in an industry setting, because I don't want to share my data to someone else, or I don't want them to use that for training. And I guess now OpenAI also has put up information that you have enterprise level chat GPT, which you can use on your own premise, and they'll not be using the data for training. So again, for open source models, even we need to think about all this, because just because it is our disposal, people tend to use things in different ways. So maybe we need good regulations on these aspects. So these are some of the challenges that we need to address when it comes to using generative AI. And here, yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Question is, so you mentioned that we don't have enough data sets, and this is especially a problem with underrepresented languages like Tamil, right? But other than adding more data sets to LLMs or fine-tuning, what else do you think that we can do to increase diversity and reduce bias in the output?
Okay. I mean, the only thing is collecting that representative data. I mean, more data is not gonna help. More representative data is going to help, because whatever data that is available in the open, right, it comes from, say, a certain geographical region. So whatever you ask a model, I am not aware of the context. Say if it talks about American history, I have no clue about American history. I'll be more interested in Indian history, right? So you need to actually make sure that the data is very representative. So I think, again, more than fine tuning, more than adding more data, I think we need to focus on the diversity of the data. So that can happen only when the initiatives like Global South in AI, or people have to come together, and we have to make sure that we, kind of collect such representative data for people to use. I guess that would be a better option. Yeah, now I just wanted to list out some open challenges. Again, this is from Chip Huyn's blog. So she recently posted this open challenges that are available in the LLM research space, because again, building models and all that is fine, but how do we actually address certain things, like, say, reduce and measure hallucinations? What kind of methods can we come up with to reduce hallucinations? Because that is a dangerous issue, right? Like, if it tends to give things that are not true and people believe it's true, and it's harmful, right? So you need to work on reducing or even benchmarking hallucinations. So that is one area of research. The next is optimizing the context length and context construction, because more information you provide, the better will be the response. But how much is enough? How long should be the context? If I give a shorter context, then maybe the model will not give me the right output. So how do I make sure that I reach that optimum point? I guess that itself is a bigger question. So that is also another area of research that people can work on. I guess some of them are already being worked on by people, and incorporate other data modalities. I think this is right now, again, available in ChatGPT, and also you can add other forms of data modalities like video, audio, etc., and then together try to build an LLM and make LLMs faster and cheaper. This is very, very essential in the industrial setting, because unless you do this, even if you build an amazing model, it's of no use, because you cannot solve use cases with that. So I think this is an active area of research, and you have a lot of optimization techniques already. A lot of papers are coming out in that direction. You have quantization, some low rank adaptation, all those things. So these are some of the interesting areas that people are already working on. And designing new model architectures, again, like I said, not just, I think both developing GPU alternatives, again, in terms of hardware also, we need a lot of innovation. Similarly, in terms of model architecture also, which can efficiently use the hardware architecture. So these two are also kind of interlinked, and they need to be taken up by people, and then we need a lot of solutions in these two spaces. And then now we do have something called agents, where a model spawns another model, and then the cycle continues till the problem is solved. So it's like an Inception movie, right? So you talk about agents these days recently, but how do we actually use it in real world use case? So that's something that not many people are addressing. Yes, toy examples you will see a lot, but is it useful for a real world use case? So that is something people should research about. And having human in the loop, so improving learning from human preference. This is very, very important, irrespective of whether we are doing ML, DL, LLM, doesn't matter, because ultimately someone has to quality check things, and someone has to give feedback, and that has to be incorporated in your training process, right? So I think improving this as a process, I think that will definitely help in addressing a lot of challenges in building LLMs, and improving the efficiency of chat interface. Again, this is on the UX front of things, where not just building the model is enough. The way it is being consumed by people, even that has to be very efficient, right? Otherwise people wouldn't be even using it. So this, again, on the UX UI aspect, I think this is also another interesting area of research. And the final one, which I am interested in mostly, is the part where we build LLMs for non-English languages. This is actually really hard, because the methods are already available. We know what kind of models we should use. We have reference architectures and all that, but we have to start from scratch in the sense that even collecting data, bringing together people, educating people about all this. So even that process itself is really hard. So I think I guess that's why I personally feel like this is the hardest to build, because bringing together community is the hardest thing. And specifically, I want to talk about Tamil, because Tamil is culturally very, very rich language. You have very huge amount of wealth of information in terms of literature, music, fine arts, etc. So, and it's one of the oldest languages, oldest classical languages in the world, and close to 1.06% of the people around the world are speaking Tamil. Though it's not much, but again, it's around 80 million people speaking Tamil language as their native language. So as a person who's very passionate about Tamil, what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of leverage technology and help it to preserve Tamil, because I have seen or I have heard from people that their kids who are settled outside India, they can talk in Tamil, but they do not know how to write or how to read, because again, we come from different parts of the world, right? Like when you go to the West, mostly your mode of communication becomes English, and you tend to pick up on those things better than your native language. So maybe we should, find a way to coexist with the generative AI era, and then try to build something, that way Tamil could be preserved and it can be passed on to generations. So that's not just my objective or my passion. I guess there are a lot of people that I know here in the Tamil community who really wanted to do this. So here, personally, what I'm trying to do right now is we have a community, right? I spoke about AI Tamil Nadu. This community has been there for a long time, but specifically for Tamil, we wanted to start some initiatives. So we have been doing a lot of events on AI, ML and everything, but we wanted to start doing events related to Tamil computing. And since I come from Coimbatore, there are a lot of educational institutions here who want to set up their own research labs or research groups focusing on Tamil computing. So we wanted to collaborate with them. So again, building this, we have been doing this for quite some time, but now we wanted to have another initiative under this community, which is to talk about the Tamil NLP more. So that's one thing that currently we are doing. And I was very surprised to see that 25 years ago, more than 25 now, 1998, there was a project called Project Madurai, which was an open source project headed by Dr. K. Kalyansundaram. So he is a professor at EPFL, Switzerland. So he has gathered a lot of people around Tamil Nadu. And what they did is they actually digitized all the literature, ancient literature books that are there in Tamil. So almost close to 10,000 books are there in this project, which to be honest, I felt ashamed that I didn't know this, because I was, of course, in school time, I didn't know about the project. But now when I was trying to find data sets for some of the work that I'm doing, I came across this gold mine. So we should, kind of foster such open source projects, because these will become the source for data. Again, there is one more initiative called Kanyam, I think, which happened in 2020 by Srinivasan. His name is Srinivasan. So this is a foundation. Again, they are also concentrating on, building data sets or making Tamil reachable to people. So I think we should start fostering these open source projects or communities, and then we should also contribute. So that way it will become easier for us to build anything for that particular language. I think similar things might exist for other languages also. And
Abinaya, sorry to interrupt. This is amazing. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So another important aspect that needs to be addressed when we talk about building your own LLM is that infrastructure cost, right? Like not everyone can afford. And yes, we can put something out of our pocket, but if we want to do it at large scale, managing that cost is going to be really, really high. So we are in the process of getting some crowdsourced funds or approaching companies as part of their CSR activities so that, we can actually spend that money on the infrastructure. So this is also something that is ongoing. And
hi, Abinay, I'm sorry. I went off mute and then there was an alarm here, so I had to go away. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was hoping to get to a lot on this topic on generative AI and Tamil. You're giving a lot of resources. Hope you'll share the resources, and looks like we'll have to call you back. Find your time again, because so this Weeklywed is hosted by Business School of AI, which is kind of my student community. We come together to learn from people like you from around the globe, and what you're trying to do there in Tamil, and looking at resources from, you were quoting Project Madurai, which came out of Europe and stuff like that. So there is a global movement, pockets of people working on similar projects. You said there's reference architectures and the like on building low resource languages, right? Generative AI for low resource languages. There is a group in Africa called Masakane that is doing for variety of African languages. Right. And similarly, there is a Latinx in AI. And Susanna Raj is here, and Pariya Sarin, who's hosting this, and myself, Sudha, Jamthe. We have actually founded Global South in AI, which is focused exactly on this. We want to bring people from around the globe, people like you, to make sure that language AI is inclusive. And like you mentioned, there are areas of research that you can focus on. There are data sets you can build on, or you can contribute to existing open source projects, or you can come up with what is in your world that is important, right? When you build say for Tamil, right? If you build a chatbot, what should it be doing might be different from what somebody else might expect the chatbot to do if they're sitting, say, in Silicon Valley like me, right? And I understand Tamil, that's my mother tongue too. So it's fascinating what you're doing, and we hope we can create more collaborations. I appreciate your participating here. And in fact, we have one person last year at Global South in AI, we had a whole bunch of posters presented on adding inclusion to language AI. And we had one of the authors there who is here. I don't know if he's still on the call. Suresh Lokaya had posted a poster about Tamil Kuttu, which is, colloquial Tamil, right? Which is different from. So one of the problems for Tamil language specifically is you can get all the translation from past literature, but the pure Tamil that is in written Tamil is very different from the colloquial Tamil. So the average person who's not learned it in school finds it very hard, or if you're watching movies and colloquially, if you know the language, it's not the same. So you cannot go to a chatbot and talk to it like it was talking like a Victorian English equivalent in Tamil, right? Sure. So there might be a similar problem with other languages, right? In which have a difference between the written and the spoken version of it. So I want to give it back to you to continue on, and I hope you will come back to us and talk to us about, what you said, that, specifically for Tamil, you can say, but I want to see the parallel in other languages on reference architecture and how you can create not just chatbots, but, true LLM, which is representative of the local cultures and the language nuances that historically captured in language. Thank you.
Sure.
I'll give it back to you.
I'll definitely maybe do another session sometime on that. So again, continuing with what does it take to build Tamil AI, Tamil generative AI. So one thing is, right now, I guess the amount of people talking about all this Gen AI or even any kind of AI, ML, machine learning is very, very less, right? But normal people outside my home, if I go and talk about ChatGPT, not anyone is going to know about ChatGPT. So the first thing we should do is probably, bringing together community and educating them. So even if they do not know.
Sorry. No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, educating them on what these technologies are, and even bring in people to contribute high quality data, because I know personally that people from the previous generation, like my father, mother, who are very interested in contributing to Tamil in any form. If I ask them to write, say, can you please write poems on certain things and share it, they will do. But they might not know why they are doing it or why should they do it. So maybe motivating and teaching people to do that will also help. And there are some initiatives that I'm part of. One of them is Aya by Cohere for AI. They are currently organizing almost a year-long initiative where they are trying to collect high quality data for 101 languages across Europe, Asia, and Africa. So I am representing Tamil. So I'm the language ambassador for Tamil, where I bring in volunteers from different walks of life, and I tell them how they should contribute and what they should contribute, so that data set even can be used for us personally, right? Like if I want to build a model, all the artifacts are going to be open sourced by Aya. So that's why I even volunteered for it, so that we can use those data sets for our own purposes as well, to solve for, like you said, very specific problems faced by the Tamil community. So again, such initiatives, even as a community, we need to start doing it. So already some companies are doing it, and I know AI for Bharat is also they have been doing a lot of initiatives in the Indic AI, Indic NLP space. So maybe not just research institutions or nonprofits, even normal people should start doing something. Then probably we will get very high quality data. And like I said, teaching people about the basics of NLP, or how to do fundamental research for Tamil computing, because another challenge that I see is that, of course, grammar will differ from language to language unless it all belongs to the same kind of, if we write it with similar kind of script or it follows similar kind of rule. But otherwise, most of the languages, there will be some minor differences in the grammar, right? So Tamil is very different. And even the tokenizers that we have for Tamil, I have not seen it work well, like 100% well. So maybe we should start focusing on the fundamental aspects first, like building proper tokenizers, proper building blocks, and then even start working on the LLMs. Because like I said, LLMs, whatever we have right now, which is using English, the same architectures can be used for any other language. But how we pre-process the data, how we make sure that the words are properly split, whether it is meaningful, all those things will help in even using those existing architectures as is without doing much change. So I think that is also another aspect that we are thinking to work on. And last point I want to talk about is, again, ethical and societal issues, because building something is easy, but how people are going to use it, I think, again, we need a lot of regulations on that. So I think this is something that the government should think about, because as a person, just me, I cannot change everything, right? Like it has to actually come from the community or even come from the government, and so that people start following it. So I think these are some of the ongoing and like planned things that we are thinking in terms of building a Tamil model, be it generative AI or even basic deep learning models. We do not have much. So I had actually built a GPT-2 model long ago in 2021 for a hackathon. But again, I was running short of data. I was running short of resources. It was for a Hugging Face hackathon. Luckily, the TPU was provided for 1 week, but I could train the model for just 1 week. If only I had the money to spend, or if I had the access to the infrastructure, probably I would have done it longer. So maybe working on all those issues, probably we'll be able to build some very base models for Tamil, which can preserve the nuances of the language. So I think this is what I want to talk about on the generative AI for specifically Tamil. And I also happened to attend last week's call by Susanna for the CFP. So I did submit a abstract. So again, here, I'll just give a brief idea. Maybe here what I wanted to do is not just building applications like chatbot or any other, like not tools like that. What we wanted to do is we wanted to build an LLM as a knowledge repository, so which can actually capture the nuances of the literature, which can become like that oracle. Like when you ask about anything related to the Tamil's history or culture, heritage, it should be able to provide information. So again, this is like literally trying to mimic our ancestors. Like if I talk, my grandfather is no more, but when he used to be there, whenever I ask him any question related to Tamil, he used to answer because he used to know everything. So what if we could emulate that using an LLM? Like whatever our ancestors used to know, if we can capture all that in an LLM as a knowledge repository, it would be really helpful, because that can help the next generation of people. If they can't learn Tamil or if they do not understand, probably this will help them. So I think my abstract I think the overview of the abstract is what I just said. We wanted to work on that fundamental aspects of the language, and we wanted to build a LLM for that. So yeah. And again, also I wanted to talk about the, as part of the abstract, I also talked about the impact that it will have on creators, because some of the people's livelihood is dependent on their creations, like writers, poets. There are a lot of people who still do that. What if this Gen AI comes and it becomes a replacement for them? The sad part is they don't even know that Gen AI exists, because like I said, only a very tiny part of the population knows about all this Gen AI stuff, not everyone. So as a community, what we wanted to do is we wanted to build something for Tamil, but we also want to make sure to let the creators know how it is going to affect their life. Instead of being wary of it, what we wanted to do is we wanted to coexist with the Gen AI shift, and then how we can take Tamil forward. So that's what the idea that I have submitted. So I guess that brings me to the end of the presentation. So if there are any more questions, please go ahead now.
And yes, thank you, Abinaya, and thank you for submitting your abstract. And I think it'll be very inspiring and a good example for the rest of the people who are also on their way to submitting an abstract. And as an announcement also, Global South in AI has extended its deadline to September 10th to submit your abstract. So yeah, you have some days, and then also go to globalsouthinai.org to submit your abstract. And
Pariya, if you don't mind, can you stop the share? And
okay.
Abinaya, would you mind stopping the share? And Pariya, can you show the website?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. One second.
Thank you. We've got a bunch of submissions following Susanna's webinar from last week, but we're hoping that those of you who are watching this are inspired, either on YouTube or on LinkedIn. And if you want to make a submission on any language or any of the research areas from Global South in languages or countries, you can participate. And Pariya is going to show you the site in a minute. And all you need to submit is 250 words abstract. And you can follow up with us if you want on the Slack channel to get feedback if you need it. Back to you, Pariya.
Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this will be updated. As you said, we're extending the deadline to September 10th. But yeah, so basically, for those of you who haven't seen who haven't attended our previous workshop, you have three options for submitting your abstract, which is one is the impactful use case of in the Global South, and then second is a difficulty or a harmful use case, and then the last is a missing use case. So you can submit one or more abstracts, but each of them should be in one of each separate category. And then also this year we're doing three options of poster, demo, and visual art exhibit. And and then I can also go ahead and show you some of our previous. Sorry, my computer is a little bit slow here. Okay, sorry about that. But also, Sudha was talking about Suresh's poster last year. And yeah, this was, it's also available on our Global South in AI website, globalsouthinai.org. Sudha, do you want to add something? Or Susanna?
Susanna might be able to add.
Thank you.
Putting you on the spot here.
Thank you, Abinaya. That was really, really amazing. Like, there are so many groups working on Tamil language, and you said you are ashamed that you did not know. I am ashamed that I did not know any of them. And now only I'm hearing about all of them. So it's like, it was very enlightening. And then to see your passion within this Gen AI space and within the Tamil language and making it more inclusive in the AI space is amazing. I think I will be pinging you online. I mean, we should talk. And you said, you needed resources. Let's talk on what resources you need and how we can get that and how we can move this forward.
Sure.
So actually, the reason we extended the deadline is that, a few of them on Slack were pinging me that they were in different time zones, and it was very difficult for them. They almost had the draft ready and they were not able to submit. So this was, giving the people, more time to actually not panic and actually give them more time to submit. We have received quite a number of abstract submissions that are very diverse in all languages from all countries and, in different domains within Gen AI. People really took it far more wider than we assumed they would. So it's super interesting to read all of those abstract submissions. And I got your submission too, Abinaya. It's very amazing. And we look forward to working with you more to see it bring it as a poster or, some type of format at New IPS. So what I would like to add is that anyone who is here, anyone who is watching on LinkedIn, is that, please go and submit at Global South in AI for our conference. It's very simple. It's a 250-word abstract. Basically, you're talking about the problem, the impact, a positive impact, negative impact, or a missing use case within the generative AI space that you see within languages. So do submit there. And if you have questions, you can continue asking us those on LinkedIn, on our Slack channel, and through other mediums. You can catch us and ask us. There are like four program chairs here. That is me, Sudha, and Pariya, and Yash. So you can ping all of us and you can ask us. And it would be far more easier for you to reach me, because I'm trying to make myself available for the next. I made myself available until August 30th today on Slack, on LinkedIn. I don't usually stay on all of those social media platforms all the time, but I will continue to stay on for the next 10 days as well, so that I can respond immediately to your concerns, to your questions, and make sure that, you get your submissions on time. Is there anything else I'm missing, Sudha, that you wanted me to add?
So, people attended your webinar last week, and so they got details on what is involved. So last year at Global South in AI, we wanted a research poster. And so people, submitted that, and we had, people presenting at New IPS at New Orleans last year. So this year we made it easier. I think we should tell people about that, because there are people who are in Global South countries, who are speaking different languages, who feel the need for an intelligent chatbot or a data set that would do something for their region, but they are not researchers. So I've heard this from people who are saying, I'm not an AI researcher. I've never published research. So they have ideas, but then they think it has to be in a research format, and then they kind of don't share it with us. So can you talk about how this is we have made it more inclusive in our submission this year?
Yes. I did talk about that last time also in our last session on Wednesday, I believe. So here I can talk to you a little more on that. We received a lot of feedback from last year, how it was more rigid and more of a barrier to entry for many of them who are very new to research. Our goal at Global South in AI is also to bring you into the research sphere where you get more exposure to share your ideas. And also New IPS is one of the largest and premier conferences in the globe on artificial intelligence. And that's a great way to bring your ideas on stage. And they have certain standards for researchers. And we were trying to bring as much of that into our call for papers, call for abstracts last year. And we did a lot of, webinars and workshops helping people on how to craft an abstract, on how to craft a poster submission. All of those are excellent resources. You can go to our website and find out how to do that. But we listened to all your feedback and said, this year we will make it pretty open. Open in the sense you don't have to be a researcher. You don't have to be anyone working in the AI space. You just see the whole hype, and you have heard about ChatGPT or the generative AI. You have played with DALL-E, you have played with Midjourney. You are all excited. You are all excited about the possibility of how this could help you, and you have tried it and you have seen something that you feel is like an impactful use case for your community. And sometimes you tried it and you found it has a negative use case for your negative impact for your community. And sometimes you feel like, oh, I wish it had that. I wish it could do this for me. And you found a missing use case. We are just saying, as a general public, if you have found used any of these generative AI tools, and you have found any of those three tracks, impactful, negative impact, positive impact, or missing use case, submit it as a feedback. Because OpenAI and also Bard and all of these generative AI tools were launched to the public in a way that's good, because there are many people, as Abinaya also mentioned, many people don't even know about the history of AI or LLMs or anything. They are now just first time hearing about ChatGPT, and they are immediately adopting it. New adoptees are, in a way, it's also good because you are not carrying the burden and the baggage of everything all the experts know. But on the other hand, you are also a newbie that you will be struggling with all the new technologies that this one is bringing, that the experts have a privilege of knowledge on that area. So both of those are good things. But I see even somebody, one of my nieces and my cousins from India who's not even in the AI space, sent me messages about ChatGPT. So it's like it's in a way it's a democratizing AI literacy, and I'm very happy about it. So at a time like this, we cannot, as the people, as the leaders in this space, put a gatekeeper on it and say, we are going to make sure that our submissions, our abstract submissions, our, call for papers have to be from people who have knowledge about the AI space. So that's why we made it as open as OpenAI made their platform and allowed anyone in the world to use it. We are also making this abstract submission very open. So you don't have to know anything about any of the subjects. You don't even have to work in the research space. You just have to know that you used generative AI, one of the tools, and you used it in your language, whatever the language may be, and whatever the impactful or the negative impactful or the missing use case you found, and just share it with us. You write it as plainly as you possibly can. The same way you would talk to a friend, you write a 250 words abstract to us. We are also making it so open that we are not even going to ask you if you see a problem, we are not asking a solution for it. The way abstracts work, and I mean, as researchers, we know that, you have to present a problem, you have to present a solution. So we are asking you not even to do that. If you see a problem, just state the problem itself. Don't even worry about the solution. We will work with you to see if there is one, or we will just present the problem. It's okay. One of the things we learn in psychology is complaining is a skill, is a life skill. Complaining is one of the things that a baby does when it is hungry, as soon as it's born. It's an indicator that it's alive and that it has some need. It is either, needs a diaper change, or it needs food, or it's in pain. It's going to complain. It's going to cry. And that's the first sign. That's the first sign of, an indicator of life. So I think it's important for people to be given a platform to complain, as well as to praise, as well as to see, talk about what's missing, and with no need for you to be an expert on that space. I'm going to post an article, on Global South in AI's LinkedIn page about how in Switzerland, they were, I believe it was Switzerland or New Zealand, but where, architecture, people, were building those great architectures and, building buildings, and people were not allowed to comment on it. The public was never allowed to comment on it. Then now they made it so possible that the public could comment on it and call the building either ugly or beautiful. And they said, nobody needs to have a degree in architecture or understand, civil engineering to comment on whether a building is beautiful or ugly. That's the principle we are using at Global South in AI. So you get to comment, you get to praise it. We will not do gatekeeping on why you should be praising that. It has so many bias problems. It has so many privacy problems. How dare you praise something that, that has so many issues? We are not going to do that. And if you complain about it, we are going to take your complaint as a feedback and share it on a global space. So that's what it is. And I think I talked this way for almost an hour on last Wednesday and tried to get people to submit. So the same thing I'm doing now. So please submit.
Thank you, Susanna. I missed the last week's session, so I'm happy to hear the the version you're giving now. I want to add one thing to this complaining thing. I don't come from a psychology background. I come from a tech background. So one of the things I tell my students in various places I teach is it's a skill to ask questions. And you ask, the more you think about what your question should be, actually informs you on what you know, what you don't know. So it is possible that you hear about all this generative AI and the models, and it's very intimidating, especially if somebody is not a coder or somebody's been in the past AI world and doesn't know the new transformer models, or somebody is not a coder, is a product manager, or somebody is not even in the tech world but on the application potential end of this. It can be intimidating in many levels, right? So the easiest thing is, if you are in a friend circle or in a trusted place, you would ask questions and say, what is it doing? Why is it doing this? So I don't want to name names, but I know somebody who is not in tech, who's dealing with chatbots for customer service. And that is all built using NLP in the past and generative AI in these days. And they find it very frustrating, first of all, to come to a realization that it's not a real person that they were talking to, which is what was happening till recently. And then to understand that it is the computer talking according to them, right? Not just AI. And to deal with it, and their instinct is, how do I get to a real person? Or how do I get to a solution, right? They finally want a solution for their problem. And when somebody is on the tech side building that, they think they know their customer, they think they know their audience. So coming back to this, how you said that people can complain or ask a question, the reason I wanted to share this is, you might be somebody who just asks a question and say, okay, I'm trying, you're playing with any of the tools, or hearing about this amazing potential, or you're hearing about somebody complaining, saying it is biased, and you say, okay, what does that mean? And how does that work for my language, my life, wherever I am? But what Susanna and I and Pariya and Yash can promise is, since Global South in AI is part of New RIPS as a social affinity group, once you make a submission to us and we feel it is, good enough to bring it to new rips, we are not just going to say, okay, you complain and it is sitting here. We are bringing it to a global platform. So there are people like Abinaya who are working on specific languages, contributing to open source. There are people from all around the world who are working on AI from various different companies and startups and NGOs who are coming to NeurIPS. So when you get to present this in NeurIPS, you get to talk to a global audience. You get to talk to that company who's working on a product that is not working for you for your language. So think about it that way. So don't hold off on any of your ideas. And I'm still seeing the submissions are still very research oriented submissions. I have not seen that common man, common woman submission on how generative AI is being used in their world. Pariya had uncovered a whole bunch of examples of how generative AI is used in Global South and did a presentation. That's also here in Weeklywed in our archives. And I was amazed about, how it is being used in Indonesia, in India, in so many places. So I would love to hear about applications that people are seeing or application that they're wishing to see. So that's what I wanted to add.
Awesome. Yeah.
And people can just go to globalsouthinai.org to make the submission, to join the Slack group. You can go find Susanna on LinkedIn. She's volunteered for it. But we are here to help. I mean, that's the message. We are here to answer your questions and we are eager to see what you have to say. I haven't seen as many submissions from Latin America this year. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn or you're coming back and watching our recording, please make a submission or talk to us. Or we did have humor in Spanish language as one of the submissions last year. But if we're looking at generative AI and intelligent chatbots and image generation tools, what would you do in your world if you're from Latin America? So I would love to see that too. Thank you, guys. And back to you, Susanna and Pariya. We should wrap up, I think.
Yeah. Pariya, you can wrap up, and thank you. Yes, I have volunteered to be available on Slack, on LinkedIn, so you can catch me there until the deadline ends. And after that, I cannot promise anything.
September 10th, and the deadline is specific time?
Yes, specific time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then yes, thank you, Abinaya, and thank you, Susanna and Sudha as well and Yash for giving the Global South and AI announcement as well. And now we'll wrap up. So thank you all for joining as well, for all those who have joined on the Zoom meeting and for those who are watching the live stream. And if you aren't, if you're watching this later, and you want to join our Weeklywed community and watch and register, then register at bit.ly/Weeklywed registration. And with that, yes, thank you, Abinaya, and for this very informative session. And yes, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye.
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 Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for introducing us to Abinaya, Yash. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Abinaya.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudha. Bye, Susanna. Bye, Pariya. Bye, Ine. And bye, Stephen and Sneha. Bye.